run to the hills with massive pensions, massive payouts, while they've inflicted terrible austerity and cutbacks on the poor and the vulnerable in our society.
But what about a Fine Gael coalition? How does that make you feel, the prospect of that?
Out of the frying pan into the fire. The Fine Gael's policies are almost exactly the same as Fianna Fáil's. They, like Fianna Fáil, want to continue to implement the bailout of the banks and the IMF EU austerity package, which is requiring massive cuts, probably significant privatisation of public assets, more austerity, and a policy which we believe will further deteriorate the current economic situation in this country. So I think there's going to be a big battle between this incoming government, who want to continue the same policies, and a very significant majority of people in this country who are looking for an alternative.
Richard, thank you very much for that. Now, the counting is going to carry on here all day. We are probably going to be getting some idea of the first seats being made apparent in about 2 or 3 hours, and of course have to wait until tomorrow for that full result to be made known.
All right, Rory Challens in Dublin. Thanks, Rory. Now, South Sudan will become the world's newest nation on July the 9th. And the new government there faces a daunting task of building a new state. Now, much of the South was destroyed during the country's decades-long civil war, and officials say their first priority now will be the creation of jobs. Haru Mutasa reports from Juba.
18-year-old Gloria is gaining some much-needed skills. According to the United Nations, around 85% of adults in southern Sudan can't read or write. That's why this auto mechanics class could give Gloria the head start she's looking for.
Others are getting afraid because there are no jobs. If you have certificate, you will not get a job here in southern Sudan. But if you have the knowledge of doing such things, it will help you.
Many schools were destroyed during the Civil War. Juba Technical College is being rebuilt by Plan International, one of many non-governmental organizations working in the region. Southern Sudan will gain independence on the 9th of July. Job creation is one of many challenges facing this new nation. There are no unemployment figures, but officials say the number is far too high. Victoria is looking for anyone who can employ her as a social worker, but there are no vacancies.
You can see many people there looking for jobs, and they are not getting anything to do. Yeah. Then some of them, maybe they may think to go and do some other things like business, but it's very hard to start.
Officials hope to one day have a dynamic economy that will create jobs, but right now the resources simply aren't there.
The challenges are actually those connected with funds. So to counter this, people will have to sit down and try to plan better how to manage these finances.
But it's not just about creating jobs for those already in southern Sudan. Officials say close to 400,000 Southerners still living up in the north plan to head back to the region, and some fear this will put more pressure on already stretched resources. Aid agencies say hundreds of thousands of people have returned in the last few months. Sustainable development is crucial for a people hoping independence will improve their lives by creating a steady stream of work. Haru Mutasa, AlJazeera, Juba, Southern Sudan.
Now, in New Zealand, 145 people are now confirmed dead, more than 200 listed as still missing after Tuesday's earthquake. And the recovery efforts are still being hampered by continuing aftershocks. Christchurch central area may be completely unusable for months. And as Andrew Thomas now reports, at least a third of the buildings must now be razed and rebuilt.
What the earthquake didn't pull down, machines now razed to the ground. This was Brent Smith's bed and breakfast.
There's the saying, you don't know whether to laugh or cry. I mean, I haven't stopped shaking since they started, and it's just history, you know, it's history gone.
The house was 155 years old. It was gone in an hour and a half. This is just one of many hundreds of buildings that will have to be demolished over the next weeks and months. In the city centre, 1 in 3 buildings assessed so far has been found to be structurally unsound. The precariousness of so many buildings makes the work of the rescue and body recovery teams that much harder, as aftershocks continue to bring masonry down. In the suburbs, different problems. One, silt. When the quake hit in a process called liquefaction, muddy water bubbled up through the ground. This is what it's left behind. Many suburbs still have no power nor water, so volunteers 30 kilometres from Christchurch have started a production line of hot food. A local helicopter company then flies in to pick it up.
As of yesterday, we flew in 12,000 kgs of hot food, hot meals into some of the poorest and hardest hit suburbs of Christchurch.
This is where the meals end up. When the residents of Burwood hear the rotor blades, they flock.
We had grilled cheese sandwiches on the barbecue the first night, so this is much better.
Because you can't store food with no refrigeration, that's, this is a good proper meal.
Streets can be cleaned, power will return, but buildings and people in Christchurch are gone forever. The city will never be what it was before. Andrew Thomas, Al Jazeera, Christchurch.
Now from Brazil, news of a miracle recovery by a young girl who was trapped in her parents' car after it plunged into a river. 1-year-old Crystal apparently spent 20 minutes underwater before being pulled out. Here you see her being given the kiss of life. After an anxious wait, rescuers cheered her recovery. She is now in intensive care in hospital. Well, still to come on the programme, we'll have all the sports news, including the spot-fixing scandal involving 3 Pakistan cricketers. It's taken another twist.
Afghanistan is faced with a huge challenge.
Relations have gone really sour between us and our allies. We have inflicted considerable damage on the enemy.
The people who make international headlines.
Ultimately, the truth will out.
They want to stop this publication of information that embarrasses them.
Make time for Sir David Frost. Frost over the world. At this time on Al Jazeera.
Unpopular with some at home, untested overseas. The first year has not been easy for David Cameron and his coalition government. In conjunction with U2, Al Jazeera asks your questions to the British Prime Minister. World View, an interview with David Cameron at this time on Al Jazeera.
Rhythms of resistance.
A part of the struggle and popular resistance is art. Through my art, I resist. Resistance is my art, and my art is my war.
Musicians using music as a way to maintain their cultural identity.
I believe that when I sing to the world, I portray Palestine through my voice, my singing, and my songs.
Songs from the lost homeland. At this time on Al Jazeera.
East Timor's government has declared it's time for foreign forces to leave the country. But with a frail infrastructure, is this nation prepared to face a future without international support? 101 East at this time on Al Jazeera.
Let's catch up with some sports news. Here's Rahul.
Taimur, thank you very much. 3 Pakistan cricketers found guilty of spot fixing say they will appeal their bans. Earlier this month, former captain Salman Butt and bowlers Mohammad Amir and Mohammad Asif were all found guilty by an International Cricket Council tribunal of planning to deliberately bowl no balls during a test match against England at Lord's last year. Well, all 3 were essentially banned for 5 years. The trio will now take their case to the Courts for Arbitration of Sport. The players are also due to appear before a court in London on March the 17th, accused of obtaining and accepting corrupt payments relating to that same match in England last August. Meanwhile, the Pakistan team are facing co-host Sri Lanka in one of the most anticipated matches of the World Cup so far. This Group A clash taking place in Colombo. Both teams won their opening games. This one has seen Pakistan choose to bat first, currently 125 for 3 off 25 overs. Well, Friday saw co-host Bangladesh record their first victory. They beat Ireland in a low-scoring but incredibly tense match in Mirpur in Dhaka. Well, after choosing to bat first, Tamim Iqbal got the home side off to a rollicking start in this Group B encounter, but after he was dismissed for 44, the Bangladesh batsmen really struggled on the slow pitch and accurate Irish bowling. They were eventually dismissed for 205. Well, the Irish started cautiously in their innings, but crucially kept losing wickets at regular intervals. Kevin O'Brien kept things interesting with an innings of 37. That's six, one of the highlights of his innings. But then Shaiful Islam took a match-winning 4 for 21 to help bowl out Ireland for 178, giving the home side victory by 27 runs. On Friday's early match between Australia and New Zealand in Nagpur saw a minute's silence for the victims of the Christchurch earthquake. Well, New Zealand's players could have been forgiven for having other things on their mind. Their batsmen certainly couldn't cope with the Australia quicks as they were reduced to 73 for 6 at one stage. 50 from Nathan McCullum helped the Kiwis achieve a modest 206 all-outs, while the Australians had little trouble in reaching their targets. Openers Watson and Haddon put on 133 for the first wicket. The world champions reached their target for the loss of just 3 wickets. And with 16 overs to spare, they've now gone unbeaten for 31 World Cup matches. Their last defeat came back in 1990. Football, and with second-place Arsenal in League Cup final action on Sunday, Manchester United can increase their lead at the top of the English Premier League. They take on relegation-threatened Wigan a little later, and they could go 4 points clear with a win. In Spain, the top two are both in action. Barcelona play Real Mallorca, one of only 3 teams to take points off them this season. Later, second-place Real Madrid, even visit Deportivo. Tennis, and world number 1 Caroline Wozniacki will try to win her 14th WTA title when she plays second seed Vera Zvonareva in the final of the Qatar Ladies Open on Saturday. Friday saw the Dane in dominant form as she blew away her semi-final opponent. Sana Hamouche reports.
Top seed Caroline Wozniacki seems to enjoy playing in the Middle East as she continues to shine at the Qatar Ladies Open. Fresh from winning her 13th title in Dubai, and on a 7-match winning streak, she faced Marion Bartoli on Friday. In a one-sided match, the Dane dominated from the opening game, breaking Bartoli's first service game and cruising to the first set 6-1. It was the same story in the second set, as the world number 1 wrapped up the match in just 65 minutes to stay on course for a second title in a week.
Very happy about the way I played today, definitely. You know, I think I've played very well the whole tournament, so I'm so happy to be in the finals here. And I mean, I always play great, and the crowd is amazing and takes so good care of us here. So.
The second semi-final was a much closer encounter, which saw 2008 runner-up Vera Zvonareva against 5th seed Jelena Jankovic.